Quinnipiac men's and women's hockey continues to dominate.
And we'll check in on the men's and women's basketball teams who are halfway through their seasons.
All that and more coming up next on Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to the first episode of 2016 of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Rob Ciambra.
And I'm Fortier.
Quinnipiac men's ice hockey had a couple of close calls in the month of January, tying Northeastern, Maine, and RPI, and finished off the month with a third-period comeback against Dartmouth. With these recent close games to lesser teams, Connor, would you say that this is more of the Bobcats playing down on their opponents, or is it because they're coming off winter break and are slow to start back up?
I actually think it's because they're coming off winter break and slow to start. We've seen this team kind of struggle coming off the winter break. You know, in the past 3 seasons, they're 11-4-2 coming off the winter break. And then last season, they got swept by Merrimack in a home-and-home. And that was kind of a surprising, series of losses for this team. So we've seen this team kind of hit bumps in the roads after winter break, and honestly, it was something I expected to it. Maybe the tie to Maine was something that came out of nowhere, but still it was a good tie in the fact that they came back from that game. So I think it's just them coming off the break.
I disagree. I think they're playing down their opponents. I mean, you play these teams, yes, they're in a different division, but still, Maine and Northeastern are at the bottom of Hockey East right now, and I didn't think they came out very strong. They scored the first goal against Maine. They came out ready to play, but after that first goal, they backed down very badly. They did not look good the rest of the game.
But it's still Hockey East. It's still a top conference in the nation, and recruiting wise, it's still Maine and Northeastern are still going to get some pretty good recruits. So I don't think it's more of playing down to them, just because, like I said, the conferences are so close to each other. But I do agree. Yes, the Maine one was kind of out of nowhere, but like I said, they came back from that game very late, and I think it showed to a lot of the fans of Quinnipiac that this team can find a way to win. Personally. Yeah,
but I think with the Northeastern game, you also have to take a look at the fact that that was another game they still had to come back in the third period. I think they had to rely on a little bit of luck because they were handed power play after power play in the third period, and it took them a while to finally get something past the goaltender and come back in that one.
Well, I'm glad you just mentioned the word luck because, Rob, that's kind of onto our next topic. Do you think this team is just relying on, is just really talented, or do you think it comes down to a facet of luck? They're getting late power plays in these games like you kind of just mentioned.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, but like I said, they've had to rely on luck with the Northeastern game. Like I said, they had a 5-on-3 in the third period against Northeastern. They couldn't capitalize on that, but then they were handed another penalty. They pulled guard take, and they were able to get that tying goal. And then against Maine, they had another power play, and Thomas Aldworth tied it up with a few minutes left. But I think they had to rely on those penalties.
Can't you just make the argument that they're getting these penalties and power plays because they're so talented? I think it's really because they're really talented, and they find a way to win games. Maine game, for example, it took a very fast skater in Sam Mann to draw that call late in the game, and it wasn't luck that Thomas Aldworth, because Thomas Aldworth's goal was unbelievable. I thought real close and right below the dot,
Definitely.
Right past the goaltender's ear. I think that was not luck. I think that was talent when it comes to the game. I can understand how they didn't really capitalize on some of the opportunities in the Northeastern game, but RPI was a tough game. You always have Kasdorf in net, who's a tough player in net. Against any team, and it takes talent to beat people like that. And
yeah,
I really
definitely.
think that's what it comes down to in this.
I agree with the RPI game. That was a game they tied that game off talent. That was honestly, that was one of the greatest games of hockey you could have ever seen. For it to end in a tie, it was just a fantastic game. Those two teams played each other very hard, Connor, and the Bobcats got unlucky with a couple unlucky bounces when RPI went up, and they relied on their talent. I think that was a game their talent showed when they came back to tie it, and the heart that the team has.
Absolutely.
So, working off those points, Connor, is there an upcoming game in the schedule that's a trap game in your mind?
Yes, there is. I don't think it's this weekend with Cornell and Colgate. I think this team's mentally prepared when it comes to those teams coming into the High Point Solutions Arena. But you have to look to next weekend's games against St. Lawrence and Clarkson. And I think in that weekend it's going to be the Clarkson game. Clarkson was the one that snapped their winning streak earlier in the year with a 1-1 tie here at High Point Solutions Arena, so I think it's going to be that Clarkson game because of their physicality.
I'm going to say St. Lawrence because St. Lawrence, as everyone knows, they've been the thorn in their side. They ended that streak a couple years ago and that incredible run the Bobcats had, and this year they tied them back in November. It was a 0-0 tie, so I'm going to say the St. Lawrence game.
Well, that'll be interesting to see coming up, but we're going to move over now to the women's hockey side of things. This is a team that has been red hot since the start of the new year, going 8-0-1 since we changed the calendars over, and only allowing more than one goal in a game once in that span. This past weekend, Rob, they had a huge 1-0 win on the road against Harvard, and then finished up the weekend sweep with a 2-1 victory at Dartmouth. So, Rob, it's clear that this team had a big win against Harvard. how big is it to really mean for this program to get that 1-0 win at Harvard?
Well, Connor, for this women's hockey team, that's their first win on the road at Harvard in the entire time they've been playing them. This is the first time they have swept Harvard in a season. Harvard's starting to fall off the rails. You know, their train's starting to derail. They've had a rough stretch, especially in the new year, but the Bobcats have taken advantage of it, and they're proving that they are the best team in the ECAC right now. This was a huge game for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people saw the game and said, well, they beat Harvard. You know, that's obviously a big deal because Harvard's used to be a powerhouse when it comes to women's hockey, but I think it goes back to the first time they actually won at Harvard. That plays huge, just in case they have to face Harvard again sometime in the ECAC playoffs or in the playoffs in general. It's in the back of their mind. They're monkeys off the back at that point. We went up to Harvard and we kind of smacked them around. 1-0 win, big win for the team, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But looking ahead, so because the Bobcats are first in the ECAC, it's a possibility that the Bobcats could host the ECAC semifinals and finals if they stay the #1 seed. What does that mean for them?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. They're used to going up to Chila Arena, to Clarkson, all the way up in North Country in New York. That's a far drive to get up there, and it's not an easy place to play, especially with Clarkson, who's used to dominating in women's ice hockey side of things. A couple years ago, we saw them win the national championship. So I think it's huge. It's kind of setting the tone that, you know, hey, this team is ready to play in the ECAC playoffs, and you're going to have to come to Hamden if you want to go into the national tournament. So I think it means a lot for this team, solely for the fact that they don't have to go all the way up there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The past 2 years in a row, the Bobcats have gone up to Clarkson. Last year, they lost to Harvard in the semifinals. The year before, it was to Clarkson. Clarkson went on to be the national champion. And, you know, it's huge because you could travel out, you know, even traveling anywhere in the ECAC, let alone that 8-hour trip up to Potsdam. That's a tough drive, you know, to get mentally prepared for a game like that, especially, you know, in the playoffs. And it's definitely a good thing for this team if they can hold on to first place in the ECAC and claim home ice for the entirety of the playoffs.
That's true. So now, Rob, in the stretch of wins for this team, the games have all been extremely close. All but 3 games since the new year have been a 1 or 2 goal game, including a 0-0 tie at RPI. Rob, would you say that these close wins are something of a concern for this team, or does it show us something for this team?
It's a bit concerning because of the amount of
Really?
offense.
It's a concern? Keep going, keep going.
I think it's concerning because you got to look at the offense they have. TT Cianfrano, Melissa Samoskevich, Emma Woods. These are all like people who you expect to score almost every single game. But you know, these games being 1-goal games, you know, they're winning these games 1-0, 2-1. You have that 0-0 tie in there. You know, the only exception was that 6-1 win against BU. You know, I'm expecting more out of this team, to be honest with you.
Okay, but we've seen this team kind of go through opponents, especially earlier in the schedule in recent years, and now they're becoming close and getting close games. And I think what that does to the mentality of the team is they're saying, hey, we're never out of a game. If it's 0-0, we're used to pulling away with these games, and we're not used to losing to these games. So I think it's a huge thing to this team, especially when it comes to playoffs, where most of the games are going to be close.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you could say that they are preparing for the playoffs with these close games. Still to come on Bobcat Breakdown, the women's basketball team is starting to find its groove.
And the men's basketball team just ended a 5-game losing streak.
Plus, our games to watch for. Don't go anywhere. Bobcat Breakdown, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. The Quinnipiac women's basketball team is riding a 7-game winning streak going back to January 6th. The most recent win came on Thursday, defeating Monmouth handedly 85-58. Rob, after a mix of wins and losses to start the season, do you think the Bobcats have found their groove and are on their path to dominating the MAC like recent years?
Definitely. They have 10 games left in the season, all MAC games. They're on this winning streak, and I think they found their groove. 10 games left. They're even 4th in the MAC, so it's not like they're doing badly. I think this is a team, they're on the path now. I think we're going to see another exciting playoff run from them, especially after these last 10 games.
A rare sight. I'm actually going to agree with you there, Rob. I think I think when it comes down to when reestablishing rhythm and success, it comes down to coaching. And Trisha Fabry is a coach that's used to winning. This team is a relatively young team who's not exactly used to the dominant years, but Trisha Fabry is, and she will display that confidence back to their team. And I think she's already doing a very good job of it. We've already seen, like I mentioned, riding this hot streak going in to the latter half of the year. And I think if they keep this going, there may be a hiccup in the road here and there, but if they keep this going to the MAC tournament, I'm pretty confident in the coaching of this team.
Yeah, definitely. But looking at the players, they've seen a lot of recent scoring, and they've seen a lot of scoring in their recent success. Who has been a key player for you, in your opinion, for them?
It's clear. It's going to be Maria Napolitano. She's averaging just about the same, just about the most minutes in a game. Just over 12 points a game. She's the leader of this team from beyond the arc and inside. The offense kind of goes through her, and like I said, she's one of the seniors on this team that's used to winning and is used to the winning culture on this team. So it may not be her effect on the court that I like to see, but it's her effect in the locker room and on the team because, like I said, she can display that confidence, and she's used to riding these hot game-winning streaks into the MAC tournament.
I'm going to say the rookie Erin McClure. I think she's certainly fed off Napolitano this season, but she looks like a leader out there already as a freshman. She's been MAC Rookie of the Week twice this season now, and she's showing, she's sort of showing like that she's going to have a very bright future here at Quinnipiac in years to come. This season, I've just been flat out impressed with her.
She's impressive, but she's just a freshman. Like I said, she's not used to that winning culture type of thing that's, on this team. But let's move on, Rob, into the next part of the question where he's saying, who is the young player that's, impressing you for this team?
Again, I'm going to say Erin McClure.
Really? You're just riding McClure the whole way?
Yeah, like I said, she's been very impressive. She's got, like I said, she's sort of, I'll say this about the men's team a little later on. She reminds me of the way Gio McLean takes charge on the court. She may not be as loud and as vocal as him sometimes, but I see the leadership in her already. Like I said, as a freshman, she has been a fantastic player, in my opinion. I think she's going to be one of the leaders for this team come postseason.
She is a fantastic player, but I'm going to go with Carly Fabry. We were all kind of surprised when she was named one of the captains of this team in the offseason, but it's clear that she has a command in that locker room just as a sophomore. Yes, she is Trisha Fabry's daughter, but she's averaging a lot of minutes on this team, not exactly scoring a whole ton, but it seems like she's the glue on this team that's kind of, maybe hitting their stride, and they're all working together, they're talking to each other, and I think it's showing through the leadership of Carly Fabry at such a young age. So I'm going to go with Carly Fabry on that.
All right. Well, let's move on to the other team that calls the Lender Court its own. The men's basketball team has been struggling this season, going 6-13 overall, but they snapped a 5-game losing streak on Saturday with a win over Niagara. The Bobcats have 10 games remaining in the season, all MAC matchups. Can they make a run into the postseason?
I'm not too confident in this, Rob. They had a convincing win last night against Fairfield, but they're going to have to take advantage of some lesser opponents. They have Marist on Thursday night. That's a game they're going to have to win. Marist is one of the two teams that's underneath them in the standings right now in the MAC. But then they have a couple of tough opponents coming after. They have to face St. Peter's twice, which was kind of the surprise team this year in the MAC. They're sitting right around that third and fourth spot, kind of bouncing in between that. So they're going to have to put some wins together, and they're also going to need a lot of help too. They're going to need to see a couple of losses, maybe from that St. Peter's team, like I said, but I don't really see a lot of losses coming from the Monmouth team, Iona. So they're going to have to, a lot of things fall their way, and they're going to have to really make their own chances as well. So I'm not confident in the fact.
I disagree. I think they can make a run.
Yeah.
I think, like I said it before, Jim McLean has impressed me. I think he's had a lot of help on the court, but he's also helping his team. He's one of those players I think that makes his team around him, the players around him, better. And I think he could help this team make a run in the end. Obviously there's not much time left for the Bobcats, and they need to take advantage, like you said. But I think they could do it.
The offense is going to have to run for Gio McLean, I think, at that point, if they're going to make the run. And that's a good segue into our next topic, Rob, where we say, we've heard so much about Gio McLean these past couple of years, but is he really playing up to the hype this year?
In my opinion, yes. Like I said, he is very vocal out there. You don't have to look at the stats to see how well of a basketball player he really is. The way he plays, he's hitting shots left and right. He's very vocal. He acts like a leader out there. He came ready to play this season, and he has been very impressive. He's lived up to the hype, in my opinion.
I'm going to agree with you again there, Rob. I think Gio McLean has absolutely lived up to the hype this year. We heard a lot. It seemed like everyone was kind of disappointed because they wanted to see him play last year. They just want to see what he was about. But that Fairfield game on Monday night, it showed a lot that everything was running through him. And if he's on and the office is clicking, they can beat some of these surprise teams and pretty handily as that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on to our games to watch for. Connor, you want to start with your pick?
I'm going to go women's basketball against Siena. This is going to be a big game. It's Friday, February 5th. It's in Siena, so I think that's a huge game for this women's basketball team because they have a good chance to make a run in the MAC postseason. And Siena's just above them right now in the MAC standings, so that's going to be a big game for this women's basketball team. We're going to see a lot of what they're made of.
I'm going to go with women's hockey at Colgate. Colgate's now the number 10 team in the nation. They've taken over. Harvard dropped out of the poll, as I mentioned. Another ECAC team in that top 10. And earlier in the season, the Bobcats tied Colgate. I think that was another 0-0 tie. And it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Could be a preview of what we see in the ECAC playoffs.
Yeah, but we knew the women's hockey team was going to be very good this year, and we saw them becoming in the top 5. So I'll disagree with you on that fact, Rob, but we're getting the wrap-up signal, so that will do it here for Bobcat Breakdown. Be sure to check out our past episodes as well on all your Quinnipiac sports coverage at Q30television.com and the QBSN.com.
Also follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports and at QBSN.
Also, the weekend after QBSN's coverage of men's ice hockey versus Colgate, our podcast Hockey Night Hamden returns. Tune in and also follow the Twitter account for at Hockey Night in Hamden.
I'm Rob Ciambra. He's Fortier. Thanks for watching.